Welcome to Woman Talk, where we keep it real. My name is Tara. Please join me and my girls Dee and Promessa as we have difficult and informative conversations. Our goal is to uplift and encourage you. Please go with us on this journey.
Welcome to Women Talk, where we keep it real. Today we have special guests. We have Stacia and her husband Ed, and we are going to discuss marriage, love, their book. I believe the redo, right?
We redo, yes.
Redo. Which let me tell you, when I opened the book, and this is what's crazy, I read the book. You released the book. Has it been a year now?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I purchased the book, read it, and a year ago.
Okay.
I can still tell you, I didn't have to even reopen the book because it's so, it was so relatable. So we want to welcome you. And you're joining today with myself and Tara and Promessa or Promise. Some people call her Promise. And we're so excited to have you today. So we definitely want to discuss one of the things that we know that we never talk about, and that is the struggles of marriage. I think this will be good for people before they get married, people that are already married, because some people are already married and we are, you're still struggling in your marriage and you don't know how to get out of it.
And not get out the marriage, get out the struggle.
Get out the struggle. Yes. Do not.
Yeah, right.
Don't leave the marriage, but get out of the struggle. And when I read it, it's even for both of you. I know that it had to be very difficult of how you overcome. So I'm excited. I'm so excited that Ed joined us, because definitely from women, we always talk and we know, we talk about how things are, but for men, they're a lot more private than us. And so I really want to know how you got Ed to even do it, because men, they like to say, you know what, I'm a changed person. I'm not that person anymore. And so let's just move forward. Other man I am today. And they don't want to discuss the past, when really the past really helps someone else with their future.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank y'all so much for having us. I am Stacia Gowens. This is my husband, Ed, and we've been married now 25 years, celebrated 25 in October of last year. And it's funny, I chuckled when you said, how did you get Ed to write the book? Because I think we agreed in concept that we sort of wanted to write the book, but actually moving it from concept in our mind to putting pen to paper to how is it going to be structured was a bit of a challenge. I think once he counts on me to be like the creative one. And once I sort of came to him with, maybe this is how we could structure it, maybe because we do both love music, maybe each chapter we have a song that we can put to each chapter. And I think that helped him go, oh, okay. Once I gave him sort of a structure to work with, then I think he was like, all right, we can do this. And then COVID hit. So we had time, to actually sit and put pen to paper and make this a reality. So
yeah, I think it was important too, Stacia, when we talked about the book, we talked about some advantages to it being not only just for us as a couple therapy, but just for other people out there. And like you alluded to earlier, for men, it's difficult for us sometimes to communicate what we feel and how we feel and actually just say things. So for writing this book, I mean, for me, the challenge was actually being able to put it in a cohesive but yet entertaining way, or just something that I knew that men struggle with, and given my perspective of our marriage and our situation and dealing with it. So I think there's some value in that, in helping, either, like you said, if you're young in your marriage, or if you're in your marriage, or you're going through trouble, we feel that this book can be something that could really help you.
Yes. And so really, can you guys kind of give us an overview of the book, and then we can go from there.
So the overarching view of the book is our struggle through infidelity. We like to say infidelity times 2. So both of us had experiences with infidelity, and we tell the story from each perspective. So the she-do is my perspective on what was happening at that time or through our marriage. The he-do, which is his perspective, And then each chapter ends with a we do, which is sort of what are our common lessons? What did we learn? Or what did we wish we had known when we were going through some of those things? And I think primarily the book is about, it's certainly about leaning on something higher than yourself. We could not have made it through these struggles without our Holy Father, right? Because there are some stories I tell in the book where I didn't want to, I didn't want to continue. I didn't want to go on. I wanted to quit. But somehow God stuck me in that place and said, you're not going anywhere. And I am going to help lead you through this. So that's one of the overarching themes, obviously, of the book. The other is um, it's important to have a village. It's important to be able to have people you can count on, other couples that are in healthy relationship who can check you when necessary, which means you have to be open with them and vulnerable. You have to tell them what's going on in order for them to do that. But also that can help you in times where, there were times where I was just struggling. I couldn't, I had to say to some friends, I need you to take the kids for the night and don't ask me any questions. Right. And I had to have friends that were like, I got you. And they didn't ever ask me any questions. Right. So you have to have that village. And then I think the other part is you have to do the work. One of the things that people have always said about Ed and I is, y'all seem like the perfect couple. You're so happy. You always, and we do, we get along fabulously. We really and truly are best friends. We like the same stuff. And all of that worked really well for our marriage. Um, Co-parenting, parenting our children. We have very few disagreements on parenting our children, right? So we were in lockstep on so many things, and yet this can still happen. And so we had to learn about communicating the good, the bad, the ugly, and the very ugly with each other, and being open and vulnerable to doing that, and how we got to the place where we put in systems, things that we could make sure we had those touch bases. Because if we didn't, time just would go on. That one offense would happen. You wouldn't say anything. You'd swallow it. And then it builds up over years and years. And that's never good. So what would you add?
I would just add also, one of the interesting things that we use to, tell our story and weave it into the book was the use of music, right? You'll find that for each of our chapters, he do, she do, there was a theme song that we built on to kind of like tell a little bit of a story. So I think that helps, right? Because music is sometimes therapeutic for some of us to listen to, calm us. I mean, we listen to music to work out, we listen to music to get us motivated, we listen to music when we want to chill. So the few of the songs that we picked and we built a playlist on really highlight some of that, what we were going through and how we're feeling. And we're hoping that would come through in the words too. And then as you mentioned about the village, when we first talked to some of our close friends, our married friends about the book, I had to kind of talk to my male friends. And these are guys I've been known for, decades. It's something to be said when they hear the story and they're shaking their head. Yeah, I understand, Ed. And just re-encouraging me to just like, this is your story, tell it, give me, good advice on how to kind of word certain things and really come off with being authentic, but also being open. That's one thing we as guys, we don't like to do. We don't like to be open. We don't like to peel back and let you see us. We don't like to, to show that hurt, that cut. And I think through this whole journey for us, that has been something that I think has allowed us to grow. Me being able to be open allows her to be more open. When she's more open, she's more loving, giving. When I'm more open, she's happy. It's just that once we learned that was one of the things that was impacting us, being able to have that conversation, being able to communicate, then we just saw, we're able to get past that. And then we really find out our strengths, we have so many similarities. We like the same things, like she said, we kind of brought us back together where we had allowed ourselves to kind of, space apart and separate and put up our own barriers. Like we got in our own way in this relationship. And the book is a testament of being able to get out of that, get out of your own way for your success of your marriage.
Well, also, I just wanted to add really quickly, one of the things that he said about this before when we've talked to folks about the book, which I just love, is we had to learn that it is not each other's job to make one another happy. That's not our job. It's not his job to make me happy. And I had to realize that my happiness is in my own pocket. He can add to it, obviously. So it's, 1 + 1 = 5 is obviously what we're going for. But that, I have to be happy on my own. He has to be happy on his own. And then together, hopefully, we can just amplify that happiness. But I think he's articulated that before. And it just really struck me as something that's so important because I feel like in marriages, most of us go into it with that. Like, you're supposed to make me happy. Um, and the key to our happiness is not in anybody else's pocket, it's only in our own.
And I think in the book, the one thing that I really liked as well is you guys discussed your past, of your upbringing,
Yes.
and how you were raised. And then, it kind of gives you a picture of when you come together with someone, if this person was raised one way and you had a different upbringing, you could be with both parents or a divorce, or with one parent. And then when you come together, those things
Oh, yeah.
play a part
Yeah.
of you. So I definitely want to know, how did you kind of learn to separate how you were raised? Because when we're raised a certain way, we are just, strong-minded about that.
So for me, growing up, so my mom and dad weren't married. And my father has been married a couple times. So I have half siblings. And we're a blended family. I didn't actually meet my dad until I was probably almost a teenager, because my mom, I was born in Detroit, but we moved to California, so I wasn't around him and that side of the family. So growing up, you really don't know how you're going to be as you grow up, especially as a young Black man, and you don't have that role of that in-home role model of being your father. So for me, a lot of it was built on the relationships I had with other male figures in my family, uncles, family friends and things of that nature. But that still didn't really give you a clear picture of like what a marriage should be. And when I looked around, I really didn't have a good picture per se. So for us, I think the challenge was, I built in my head like what I think a marriage should be. I just say, this is the way I should be, because that's not what I received as a young boy growing up. But even that's tainted in itself, right? Because she brought her luggage into a relationship, I brought my luggage into a relationship, and we really had to figure out how to unpack that and understand each other's situation and how that was affecting us. And I think for me, the big thing was with our relationship and understanding, marriage, the importance of it. You get before God, you're really making a covenant. Really, and that's different than an agreement or a license or whatever. I mean, that covenant is important. It's supposed to be unbreakable. That means, given whatever situation, you're not to end that covenant, right? And I think for us, understanding that after we kind of went through troubles, that I think that kind of helped us a little bit understand, like, okay, we're in this to the end, right? There is no getting out of it, right? But I also knew that I needed to kind of go back and kind of repair some of that relationship with my father, so that I would understand why I was the way I was. What did I learn from that? And then take that and come back and really be able to open up to Stacia about that. Like, my feelings and why I acted this way was because really I didn't learn it, or I subconscious had it. That's why I am the way I am. And so I think with that really kind of played into us, getting better. But not having that background or having that relationship was still not an excuse for how we could do in our marriage. So I didn't want to use that as a crutch. So once you realize that you do have some deficiencies, you want to figure out where they are and build upon that, and then hopefully that will encourage and strengthen the marriage.
That's the key, is like, we all bring baggage into every relationship we have, to be honest, but everybody has different baggage from their childhood. And baggage isn't always bad, by the way. Some of it's like good baggage, right? To you, but then you join with someone else and they're like, that's weird. That's strange. I don't know what that is. And so for me, and it's interesting, we're doing this podcast right now from my dad's house in Arizona. And like I said, my parents were divorced when I was about 12. And my mother, continued working. She was a principal in the same school district that I went to school in. And then she, got her master's degree. So for me, my mother could get anything done that needed to be done. right? If it was put in a ceiling fan, if it was, she figured everything out. And so I kind of grew up with this. I don't really feel like I have to be married or, that I need someone for something. And then I'm a little bit afraid, when I peel back the onion, I'm a little bit afraid that if I do, right, and then that person ends up not being my spouse anymore, I don't want to go through that pain. And so one of our first assignments from our first counselor, our first marriage counselor that we had after I found out about his infidelity, she gave us a homework assignment, and the assignment was to go home and write down your top 10 needs. And as I say in the book, when she said the word needs, I started sweating. Like that word was so uncomfortable to me. Need? What are you talking about? You obviously do not know me. I don't need anybody. Okay, I can do it all myself, right? This is all of the stuff that's going on, the play check that's going on in my head. And so it was a really hard assignment. We went home and I think I maybe wrote down like one at first, and it was a real struggle. We talked about it. So I ended up getting to my 10, but this is like deep down in your soul. What do you need? Do you need to be respected? Do you need to be loved unconditionally? So even if it's by, that time of the month and I'm acting out at my worst, do you still love me? Do I need to know you'll never leave no matter what? And so to write all those things down was extremely therapeutic, even if tough. And the reason that I did it was because when she gave us the assignment, she must have known I was uncomfortable, but I feel like she looked right at me, like through my soul. And she said, if you can't articulate what you need, how in the world will he ever give it to you? And I went, oh my gosh.
Wow.
And
Like,
Tara, Tara Clint, she's a therapist.
Because I'm a therapist, I am so right there with her. I don't even know who she was, but I love her because that is the kind of assignment that I would give, because it's to stretch you and it's to make you feel vulnerable in that place. And I call it cracking the shell, because I'll say most of us are M&Ms. We got this crunchy outside, but we're soft in the middle.
yeah.
And if we can't ever get to that middle soft part, how will you grow? How will you be able to articulate to your spouse what you need, which is important, because I tell people all the time, if someone genuinely loves you and you tell them what you need, they might not understand you, but they, out of their love, will respond to your needs. So
Right.
it's so important that we can like crack that open and get to that. So that just made me so excited hearing that. And the fact that just as a Black couple, that you guys found it important to institute counseling into the process of healing. So that's one thing. And I will say too, I started reading the book. I love the music references because I'm such a kid from the 80s, 90s kind of music generation. And so I got your references, which made it like immediately relatable. And one thing I'll say, Stacia, that I did, and I admit I'm divorced twice, but I'm married now for a third time, and I've been married for 17 years to the husband that I'm married to now.
Awesome.
But when you talked about those rules, in a sense, in your first She Do, we got them. Like, it's like we don't even know consciously maybe that we do them, but we have a set of things. If he do this, if he do this, if
That's
he do
right.
this, then I'm out. And then it's like, do I feel like I'm punking out if he did
That's right.
this and I stay?
Oh, yes.
So, and quite frankly, when I got divorced the first time, it was based on that. You did this, you did this, you did. I'm out. Like, we have nothing else to talk about.
That's right.
I told you, and this is what you did.
Yep.
So, can you kind of talk us through what made you kind of get away from sticking to those rules?
That's a great question. And here again, I'm going to have to point to our Heavenly Father. And I think the message really came from our through our current pastor at our church in Texas. And one of the things he talks about frequently is you don't get to tell God what circumstances he's going to or not going to put you in.
Wow.
And so those rules are your rules. And you're basically telling God, I'm not going to do what you told me to do, which to his point, it's a covenant. I'm supposed to stay in this no matter what, but I'm not going to do that if these things happen. And it took sort of understanding that those rules or vows are dangerous because we don't get to vow we're not going to do something that God told us to do. And he doesn't always make it easy, obviously. And it wasn't easy for Jesus, so it's not going to be easy for us. But he's not just going to go, oh, okay, so I'm going to make sure you're never in any of those uncomfortable situations. In fact, I kind of chuckle because I'm like, as soon as you make those vows, God is like, which one am I going to pick apart first? Like, which one am I going to see if you are going to be faithful and trust me or not? And so that's really, I guess, how to get around those vows. It's not easy. But like I said, I think because y'all, I mean, you have already heard a little bit, I am, headstrong and I feel like I'm the bomb.com. How in the world would you ever cheat on me? What kind of fool? I mean, I went through all of that, of course. And it was really a struggle. One of the things that I did find was he put himself in the place of whatever you need to do. Like, you need to rail at me. You need to cry. I don't even know what to do in response to you, but I'm here. And one of the things he kept pushing, like every Sunday, he's like, babe, we got to go to church. And I'd be like, I don't want to go to church. I mean, I don't, because if God loved me, he wouldn't allow this to happen to me. Again, we get very selfish and it's all about me and not what God is trying to do through me. It's just about me. And so, I'd be in church mad, y'all. So he'd sit on one side, and then both kids in the middle, and then me on another side, because I didn't want to sit anywhere near him. And our pastor, we were going to church in Indiana at the time. And our pastor, be up and talking about how good God is. And I literally, when I say I was mad at God, I was mad. And it was personal. Like, I would say to God through like, you're not. You're not good, because if you were, why would you let this happen to me? And what I learned through that whole circumstance, so this is bigger than our marriage, but is that if you truly have a relationship with God, it's like any other relationship you have, which you get mad with your friends sometimes, you get mad with your spouse sometimes, but they still love you. And so I came through all of that and I was like, wow, I can actually have an attitude with God, and he still loved me, and he was still there, and he still held me in his hand, and he guided me through all of that without me really knowing that's what he was doing. So for me, I think that's the most important thing is, first of all, you don't get to make up the rules. Second of all, you were called to love unconditionally, which to me, there's no better relationship to understand unconditional love than a marriage. It's different than parenting. Okay. Of course, we love our children, but they came from us. That kind of love is totally different, right? Of course, that's going to be unconditional. But this one, like, I could just be like, okay, that's enough. So to regardless if you are helping meet my needs, regardless if you're loving me the way I'm supposed to, I still got to stay, and I still have to serve you, and I still have to love you. That's unconditional, because I can get away from this if I want to. Can't get away from being my children's mother, right? So there's just so many lessons to learn in not being self-focused and being focused on the higher message of what you're supposed to be able to do, which is also why we wrote the book. Because we know it's not natural for a lot of people. It's like, no, I'm not, especially for men. We've had there's a lot of guys that have asked him, yo, how in the world did you forgive your wife for cheating on you, man? Like, that's a no-go, because women were expected to forgive. But a lot of times the men are like, I'm out.
And that was going to be my question for you, because men have their pride on that part right there. And it's really, they're just hurt. You know what I'm saying? And I think they're like, nope, I can't. So I have to ask, how did he say?
So it was probably the hardest thing outside of, I don't know, I can't even think what the most difficult thing in life has been, but that was the hardest thing. And here's the interesting thing. We, as we were still struggling with our our marriage and trying to rebuild from, the damage for me from my infidelity. We were actually at a conference for our church, and God speaks to us all the time. Let me just say that he's always speaking to us, whether or not we're listening, whether we're tuning into him or not. During that conference, he was speaking to her, unbeknownst to me, like he was working something on
And
her.
by the way, I did not want to hear it. I kept telling him, you're not talking to me because I don't want to hear it right now. And literally the pastor, I'll let you finish the story, but the pastor was doing a sermon on the 9 or 10, I can't remember, steps to an affair. So that was his talk at this marriage conference. And as he was going through the steps, I'm thinking to myself, definitely past that step. Definitely past that step, right? But he doesn't know anything. And so I kept saying to God, no, I'm not supposed to. I literally, y'all, I was so twisted. I was like, you gave me this relationship to sort of make up for the fact that you let him cheat on me. Like, that's how twisted I was. So it was at that conference when I told you.
Yeah.
And it was really hard because, like I said, I didn't want to. I really didn't want to. Obviously, I mean, as crazy as it's going to sound, I know it's hard to wrap your brain around this. I didn't want to hurt him. I mean, I didn't want, and I knew that would hurt. So part of me didn't want to give it up, but the other part of me didn't want to hurt him. I knew it was going to hurt. And literally again, God speaks to you and sometimes he punches you in the face. After the pastor was done telling the story, they had been interviewing the wife. So it was a situation where the wife had an affair. They had been interviewing her, but like in shadow, you know how they blink your face out. And at the end of the talk, they turned the light on. It was his wife. Ooh. And I was like, oh my God, like, okay, so you really gonna make me tell this man, God, like for real? So they had little counseling sessions set up, little 20-minute counseling sessions. So he had signed up for one and we were waiting when I told him. And Ed is he's not a screamer, yeller, thrower of things. Like that's not his MO. But it was almost worse because he just sat there and it was just tears. And I'm just like, you suck. Like, why would you do this? Right. And so it was really hard. And
yeah, but you got to think from her perspective, that's her telling, and as she was just talking about when the pastor and his wife revealed that, it was them dealing with the infidelity and what I was seeing on my side. So she's got all that going on with her. In my mind, I'm like, wow, this dude's a pastor and his wife cheated on him. And yet he found a way to forgive her. And they talked about like some of the, like the 9 steps, what happened. I mean, and some of it, it's on both of their parts, right? It's not communicating, ignoring, it's being, just the things that I saw myself. I was like, wow, I've done all these things to her and I cheated on her. And I'm just going on my mind like, man, I kind of suck. Now, I don't know yet. We go out outside and we're sitting, she tells me, and I realized right then, I was like, I kind of put myself and I put her in that position because I wasn't in my mind, man enough to make sure I made her feel safe, protected, loved, all the things that she wasn't getting manifested itself in a way that made me feel selfish and like, I'm not getting what I want at home, so let me go over here type thing. So at the end of it, it was just, I was upset, I was angry, but I was more so with myself and said, wow, I put us in this position, right? And I was like, I need God to help us through this. I was like, this was a revelation for me to say, you have an opportunity, she built up the wall, but you're partially responsible for helping her build that wall. Now, what are you going to do? Are you going to walk away from this, or are you going to figure out how to break this wall down? You guys build back up, because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. Can we recover? Can we rebuild? And can we move on from this? But part of it is I had to sit in the well when she was mad at me for that. I don't know, it felt like years. I'm pretty sure it wasn't. But when she didn't speak and I'm trying to encourage her and going to church, I'm looking at her. I was like, the pastor, you hear the message, and she like not making eye contact with me. She's like, yeah, I'm not hearing that right now. That was a good message. And I was like, well, I think it was good for us. She's like, yeah, whatever. She was just so bent on not hearing it. But I had to be persistent, but I had to be patient. One of the things we just learned this week, and our pastor's talking about, the relationships that we have. Sometimes you have to get in the well with that person, right? You got to be there. And sometimes it's not about talking. It's not about trying to solution it. Sometimes it's just being there. And for us, in that part of our relationship, I just needed to be there, right? Mm-hmm. And I just needed to continue to support and show that I'm not going anywhere, that I'm here. Mm-hmm. And I think as time went on, it got better. And then after she confessed her infidelity, then we really, truly, I think now everything was out. Now we've said it. Now we realized the hurt that we've done. Where are we going to go from this? And I think from there, we just made such a huge commitment to one another to like, we can do this. Yep. And we can make it through this. And if we can forgive one another and continue to build, there's going to be something on the other side of it. And I think that's what it was, the journey that we now have, that we can talk to others and tell them, like, no matter what it is, no matter how dark and just ugly it can get, you can come out of it. It's going to take work. It's going to take patience on everyone's part, but you can do it.
You had said, you made a comment and it really stuck with me. And I'd like to share a little bit more about that, a statement where you said 1 + 1 really equals 5. So can you share a little bit more with us what you mean by that?
Yeah. So, I think it's about, if you're whole as individuals, there is exponential growth that comes, and it's not just for you. So the +5 is about, it's not just, and that's one of the reasons we wrote the book. It's not just about our marriage. Mm-hmm. This was about other people's marriages. And how do we help other people understand that if you can really make yourself, and I mean truly, truly whole on your own as individuals, that the exponential love and understanding that you can portray to the entire world makes your marriage bigger than just the 1 + 1, right? So it's really about what can you do for other people? And, that's one of the things I think we've lost in general as a society. We think everything is only about us, including our blessings, that they're only about us, as opposed to how are these things supposed to spill over in a good way onto other people. So that's really what I mean, is if you can teach others how to be whole yourselves as a wife and whole yourself as a husband, how that can exponentially impact other marriages. And that's, one of the reasons, obviously, that we did write the book. One of the reasons, obviously, was for us just to get it out. But we did have to agree to tell our children first. So our children knew nothing about this. And we're like, man, if we publish this book, we got to tell our children. We got to tell our parents.
Can I ask how old are the children?
Yeah, because they're not children anymore. Our son, Christopher, is 24. Our daughter, Alexa, is 22. So they would
know what's going on.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, they would know what was. So we let them read the book first. And we said to them, which is funny, we said, well, if you guys, for whatever reason, if you say don't publish this, we won't. It's done. We wrote it, but we won't publish it unless you guys are okay. And both of them were like, it's your story to tell, not ours. But they both had surprising reactions. So we told our son, who lives in Connecticut, and we had determined we were going to tell him on this trip. And usually I'm very talkative. So I'm like, this is no big thing. And I could not get the words out, y'all. Like I kept hemming and hawing and Chris, mommy and daddy wrote a book. And I could not get the words out. And he goes, babe, are you just going to tell him? Like, and I just looked at him like, like for some reason I don't have the words. And he said it. He said, well, mommy and daddy have both been unfaithful. That's what the book's about. And Christopher, our son, is so interesting. He goes, I knew something was happening back then because I wanted to watch the season finale of Naruto, like some anime show, right? And he's like, and I asked you if I could watch it, mommy, and you said no, like you yelled at me. And that wasn't normal, you know. And he said, so I felt like something was off. And I remember because I had to go to school the next day and everybody had seen Naruto except for me. I'm like, that's what you remember, son? Okay. And then we told our daughter, who is definitely the more touchy-feely child, and she's actually studying for her master's in social work right now. And yeah, and she said, she just looked at us and she said, well, y'all made it though. Like that was her takeaway. You made it. And
I also, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Oh, I also had a question. You mentioned music. So what type of music would you recommend really helped you guys get through this? Because that's really, a big part in a lot of people's life, in the lives of many people. And the type of music you put on really can set the tone of the atmosphere in the room and in your emotions, your feelings, everything that's going on. So music as well, is a part of my ministry. And so I wonder how or what music, what songs, or was it just kind of like you guys felt led to play certain things at a certain time? What was it with the music?
That's so interesting because I think we chose the music based on sort of what the theme of each chapter was going to be. I would say that we are big, 80s, 90s R&B hip hop fans. So that's what most of the music is going to be. Although there's some gospel sprinkled in there as well. I think it depends on the stage you're in. I can't remember which marriage counselor told us that we were in grief, just like you grieve the loss of a loved one. We had to grieve the loss of the marriage we wanted because it was gone. We would never have it. It was dead. Didn't mean our marriage was dead. It meant the marriage that you had built up in your mind and the one that you wanted, you will not have because you can't undo the infidelity piece. And nobody dreams about that in their marriage. And so depending on the stage, of grief we were in, whether we were in anger, whether we were in bargaining, I think different musical choices sort of go with each one of those stages. One of the songs I would listen to, which I probably shouldn't have been listening to because it probably made me even sadder, is a Chris Brown song called Damage. And he talks about like, look at the damage that I've done, look what I've done to you. And I would listen to that song on the way to work and on the way home from work. And when I would cry every minute of the way to work and every minute of the way home from work. And then I'd sit in the driveway or garage for a couple minutes, get it together because you have kids inside who need to eat dinner, right? And the reason I would listen to that song, interestingly, and I don't know if maybe I told you this, but you may not remember, was, again, he was singing about being unfaithful and the damage that he had done to whatever woman he was talking to. And I would say to myself, I wonder, does he feel this? Does he feel this? Like, he's not a songwriter, but if he were, would he write this song about how much damage he's done to me and how much pain he's caused me? So that was one I know I listened to backwards and forwards and all of the time. And it was mostly me wondering, did he really understand the pain that caused me? But in order to once you're finally at the place where you're like, we're going to move forward. I think it's all the feel good uplift songs, trying to live your life like it's golden, the songs about making it through the storm, all of those songs really still resonate because I don't think about this on a regular basis anymore, which I never thought I would get to that point. You never think, is there going to come a day where I'm not going to worry about checking his phone, or I'm not going to look over my shoulder if, he's talking to a female coworker. The day does come. But sometimes you listen to those songs and you're like, man, you talk about, now I actually have the testimony, but I had to go through the test to get it. And a lot of those songs still just make you marvel at God that he was able to get you through this.
Something you said. No, I
You
was just going to say something that Stacia said was just like the music really is kind of like a journey, like because the marriage, when it starts off, everyone's happy, you're getting married, it's a celebration, and slowly and surely, everyone's marriage, you do have those kind of like those dark times, that moment where you're unsure if, like she said earlier, is this the right guy for me? Because he's not doing anything I want. He's not making me happy. And I'm on the other side saying, is this woman right for me? She's all uptight. She's always fussing. And so I think the music ties into that, because you can really start the part where it's like, oh, it's like a part. It's like a party. I mean, the first couple of songs really get you hyped, and then the other ones kind of settle you in. You get a nice little groove, and all of a sudden the road bumps happen, and all of a sudden now we've got Usher's Confessions, and it's all deep and emotional with it. But then at the end, there's some celebratory tones to the music that we selected just to show that you can come out of it. And I imagine if we went another 10 years or 20 years, if we had to pick another song, we'd probably pick a different set of songs, because life is like that, right? Ebbs and flows. And so what felt good to us at that time to pick these songs, we might choose different if we were, redoing another time from now.
Well, except for Can You Stay in the Rain? Okay, so that song is always going to be always, because that's really where the toughest and the strongest relationships are built. It's not in the sunshine. We all want to enjoy the sunshine. We hope there are days of sunshine. And to quote Michelle Obama when she was doing her book tour, she's like, I feel like I'm happy 80% of the time. And if you feel like, think of a work week as 5 days. If you're happy 4 out of 5, listen, that's pretty darn good. Ain't nobody gonna get to 100%. But that song will always resonate with me.
Always. Wow. I'm going back to something though you said, Stacia, that I did love that you put in the book. And that was that you knew you had to be honest with him that day and make sure that everything was on the table in order for you guys to move forward. And I think that was something that was very important as well, is that you just put it all out there. And then now we can build from everything. We're bare.
Exactly.
Now we can go ahead and we can move on from there. So
it's important to note that, sometimes you just have to make the decision. You have to make the decision to love on some days. It's not necessarily a feeling all the time. Like I said, I'm lucky that I do feel it most of the time. But sometimes love is a decision. It's like, I have to get up and do this, even if I don't feel like doing it. And that's how you get to being able to, I liken this to pull your big girl panties up, right? Sometimes it's like, hey, I don't really want to do this, but I have to. This is the decision that I have to make today. And then sometimes your decision, then your feelings catch up with it, if that makes sense, because you've been acting in such a way, a loving way. You've decided to make the right decisions for you and your spouse. And then all of a sudden you wake up and that you just feel like doing it. Right. So that habit becomes something that you feel like doing, as opposed to it feels like a chore. And I did have to learn, going back to one of the questions you asked, Edie, about, the coming in with baggage. I had to understand that there were certain circumstances that happened to him growing up with a single mom who had some mental health challenges, that, yelling and screaming and slamming doors and all of that triggered something different in him than it did with me growing up with my mother and my sister, and we're girls and we scream and we yell and we slam doors and no big deal, right? But that freaked him out. And I had to learn, like, Stacia, you're a grown-up. You can decide to react differently. You don't have to yell and scream and slam doors. So I had to decide, don't do that. Find another way other than, it was always fun to me to go run out the door, slam the door, speed out of the driveway. I'm very dramatic. But I had to learn, like, that's not cute. And that's for you, but that doesn't do anything to edify your relationship. So stop it. So sometimes you have to, I hate to say, you have to grow up and you have to say, I could react that way. And a lot of people still do. And they just say, well, that's just how I am. That's not good enough, right? Sometimes you have to say, that might be how I am, but how I am in this situation is not going to help. I have to stop doing those things. So, we live and learn and get a little bit better every single day. But I can say, I don't know, and I still scream and yell, but it's rare. It's very rare.
And if she does, if we're having a difficult moment or we're at odds, typically I can stop for a moment and say, okay, now what's this really about? And then that becomes a opportunity for me to say, okay, what's really bothering you? Because typically it's not really what we're discussing or arguing about. It's something else. It's something else that might have happened earlier. It might have been something else I said or something I didn't do. And she may have interpreted one way. And if we can stop and take the time to identify that, and then we kind of talk about it, then we're like, okay, this is the feel. This is why you're feeling this way. And I understand. And now we have some communication about it. And I mean, we said this earlier. I mean, you just realize how important communication is and why it's the number one thing that really hurts couples is when they don't have that, a good communication plan, a way for talking to one another and going through difficult situations where maybe at the time you can't talk about, okay, so what do we do? Let me give you some time to cool off, but we're going to come back. We just can't let it fester.
Right.
We can't sweep it under the floor and hope it goes away, because most of us guys are going to be like, hey, you know what? If she's cool, she's not talking about it, everything is fine. I'm just going to go over to the corner, watch my game, and we're going to be okay. And that's not the case.
But what came to me in my spirit is 1 + 1 is you too. And then the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. So that's where the 5 came to me, or what was impressed in my spirit.
I love it.
Well, let me write that down real quick.
I know, right? Let me write that down real quick.
And so it's so refreshing, because I think all of us on here, I think it would be hard to meet people that have not been through infidelity in some sort. That's very difficult. And my thing is, it's always the growth after. It's the growth. It's like, as long as you're not sitting in the same place. And, I think people should be more open. Yeah, I know as a woman, and I'm sure you would say that, Stacia, it breaks you down, and it makes you feel kind of low. But at the end of the day, when you really think about it, like even me and my husband talk about this, we both came from, two different, we're both broken. And like you said, we dragging luggage in. Right. And so you go through those things, but then it's the growth afterwards. And that's why I always tell people, don't be ashamed, because it's your testimony. If you was the same person, now that's when you should be ashamed. If you say, yeah, you might not want to write that book. Right. This is who I was, and this is where I've gone. This is where I come from, and this is where I am now. And it's like this. Yeah. And sharing with people. I hope you guys if you haven't, even a couples, maybe you guys start a couples group, because I just feel like it's so many marriages. It's so many people that don't know what to do, so they walk away.
That's right. We think that's the easier thing, because it gets us away from the immediate danger, right? The immediate danger is, you've hurt me. I have to get far, far away from you. As opposed to, no, I'm going to sit here in your face every day, knowing that you've done this to me. And when we did publish the book, I was getting calls from so many friends like, so I've been through the exact same thing as you. I mean, just the number of people, and the number one thing that I heard, at least from women, was, I don't know how you got the courage to out yourself, to write this book, because weren't you afraid that some people would say what you guys said earlier, which was, what's wrong with you? Why would you stay? You're a fool. You're an idiot. How could you possibly do that? I'm sure he felt the exact same way. And we had to get over that. We had to get to the point where that's what your opinion is of me is none of my business. My business is to write this book because God told me to write this book. So I'm going to be obedient and do what he told me to do. And, regardless of what you think whatever you want to, I don't really care.
And really, you're trading, you would, even if you left, let's say you left, you would be trading that baggage for a whole nother bag.
That's right.
So it's a whole another luggage. That person might come with some more extra
Oh
bags.
yeah. Oh yeah. That's the point. And even I had to get to that point of like truly understanding because, I have to admit Ed's was it was definitely shorter lived. And mine was much longer lived. And I had to realize, to me, I was just being greedy. Because it wasn't like I've had people ask me this question before. Well, did you cheat because you weren't getting what you needed from your husband? And I said, well, I was getting a lot from him. I was also getting a lot over here. So like, I'm greedy. I'm getting a lot on both ends. Why, it's great. As far as I'm concerned. And, at the end of the day, like I said, you're still, even if he doesn't know it, you're obviously hurting him. And I have had some people say, well, why did you tell? Like, you could have stopped doing what you were doing and he probably never would have known. I'm like, yeah, but I did. I did. And God has a way of picking with you. And so you think you're going to get away with it and you think you're going to shove it down. I mean, unless I guess you're a sociopath, maybe those people can get away with stuff and not be concerned. But no, there was going to come a day where God was going to push me over that cliff.
And just if it was after you guys had built, you know what I'm saying? If you built from that
right.
foundation, and then you get here, and then now,
right.
Yeah, you already had to rebuild the trust, rebuild everything. Well, now that
trust, we got to do it again. Mm-hmm. Yeah, now we got to do it again. So, and again, I think it goes back to really understanding yourself and understanding what your needs are, what your triggers are, and then trying your hardest to communicate that on a regular basis.
Do you yours went on a little longer because subconsciously you really had clocked out and checked out of your marriage? Do you think that, or?
No, because I don't think I was checked out. I just think I was in both. And, in my situation, it's not like I saw this person often. So maybe that quote unquote helped because it didn't, even though the time span was long, the frequency wasn't, a whole bunch because I didn't see that person that often. But no, I don't think I was checked out. Interestingly enough, there were times where I was having issues with him. I'm talking to somebody else about issues with him. The craziest part is he's going, I kind of understand where he's coming from. Maybe you should. And I'm like, wait. The hell is happening here? Like, this is just, I think that's when I got to the point where I'm like, this is deep. I can't be in one relationship complaining about another relationship and this dude is trying to help this dude. What is happening? Like, clearly I'm supposed to be with this dude, right? So, I don't necessarily think I was checked out. At least the longer it went on. Early on, probably. Early on, I was still extremely angry. Even if I didn't act angry on the outside, I was really angry. And getting through that anger just took a lot of time. And it took a lot of time too to get past I need to be checking that phone. I need to be looking up in that email. And the other thing, and maybe he would agree, I don't know, I hope he does, but ladies, there are things that we understand about other ladies that they don't get.
Oh, yeah.
And it took him, I feel like it took him a long time to understand I was not overreacting. I know what that means. You don't know what that means because you're a guy, right? And so it took a while, I think, for him to get to a point where he understood this is not about what happened and I'm not overreacting, but I know chicks and she's trying to be slick.
Right.
And so don't respond, no happy faces, because to them it's just innocent. And it's no big deal. And I'm like, no, it ain't. No, it ain't. No, it ain't.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Yeah, there's a lot of lessons to be learned there. Just, we have to, in a relationship, you got to protect one another, you got to guard one another, but you also have to be aware there's always outside forces looking to destroy the marriage,
Always.
right? The marriage, because it's supposed to be a representation of God, right? And what the devil wants to do is he wants to destroy it.
Right.
He doesn't want that marriage to be successful, because if that's successful, then that's showing God's love,
That's
our
right.
love for him, and he doesn't want that.
Right.
And so, like she just mentioned, there are times where I'm just oblivious to what a little innocent DM message might mean or whatever. And she's
Girl,
like,
if you don't get out my husband's DM.
so you take that and understand. So, it becomes, I have to, be more disciplined. Just like if I told her, like, hey, some guy might have, waved at you and be like, yeah, he likes you. And she's like, what? He doesn't. I'm like, no, that guy, he's trying to hit at you. So you need to watch. So, I mean, we just have to be diligent with one another. But I think also, like she just said, once we have the trust and the person really understands, what's important, that stuff falls off. And then, like I said, you don't need to respond to anything like that. You're not engaging that. You are engaged with your marriage. You are focused and centered on that. And that becomes the purpose. That becomes the joy. Because now we have happiness, we have joy in the relationship, and you don't have a need to go outside,
Right.
Or letting outside influences impact you as well.
Exactly.
Yes. You can think about removing those distractions and that kind of being caught in the weeds is when you can begin to build legacy. And that's what's important. Because if we spend all of our marriage caught in the weeds, what's he doing? Right. What's she doing? You forget to build. And building is really what it's all about. So it's like, for me, I'm happy that you guys have shared your story and that you were honest.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people go through and they'll just like, they were going through, they'll disappear for a while, then they'll emerge like, oh, everything's good. But what you guys did was like talk through that process of, how it got, how it started, it was good, how it got bad, and then what you guys had to do to work through it to get back good again, and now to build. And that's what's so important, because if we continue to be stuck, we won't build legacy.
Right.
What will people say about us once we're gone?
That's right.
We spent a whole bunch of time fighting, but what did she, what did they build? And that's just so much more important.
That's one of the things that was really important to us, in the back of our mind, in the middle of our mind, in the front of our minds, was what are we showing our children? And are we showing our children that hard times may come, but here's how you get through it? And they can apply that lesson. It doesn't have to just be towards marriage. They could apply that lesson to other relationships, to their education, to other things, so that they really see, mom and dad, man, they went through it, and look at them now. And for us, when I say, I don't care what anybody thinks about me, I do care what my children think a lot. And, my daughter will catch us, unbeknownst to us, put us on Snapchat with relationship goals. And I'm thinking that's what I work for, right? Is that my daughter and my son, but my kids have seen this is what it's supposed to look like. And they have also seen that it's not always pretty. Sometimes we do fight. Sometimes we made that decision, I'll say, before the kids were born. Are we going to fight in front of the children? Are we not? Are we always going to? And we said, oh, we will absolutely fight in front of our children, because they have to see it's not always rainbows and puppy dogs. But even the next day, even if we happen to have not so great a fight, hey, they're still here and they're still working through it. Because that's honest. To your point, that's honest. It's not honest that people who are in marriage do not fight. Now, we committed to not being ugly about each other. But we decided, they're going to see this because they have to. It's just real. So now they've seen about as bad as it can get, I think. But look, mom and dad are still together.
And I want to say, I'm happy that you guys made it. I don't want people to get the impression that we believe that you should try to stick and make it through everything, because in reality, sometimes it doesn't work.
Right.
I'm very open about my
Or shouldn't, or you shouldn't.
Right.
and
Right.
sometimes it shouldn't work. Sometimes God allows us escape. For every temptation, there's a way of escape.
Yep.
That might not be the best scripture to apply, but we know what it means. So we've fallen into things many times, and God has allowed us to get out. So that's not to say because you guys made it, everybody
Right.
is going to make it or even supposed to make it. There's a meme, and it was the funniest thing ever. That there's, it's like a cat or something that looks like it's just been beat all to hell.
Uh-huh.
And the caption says, "You leaving a relationship that you know the Holy Spirit told you not to get into."
That part.
That's the part. There go that part right there. That's what I was going to
Well,
You was never supposed to be there in the first
that's
place.
the point.
No, I was not. But you know, he made a way and now open door for my ministry. So praise God. That is a testimony to other women. So
Yeah.
I think that's key that, there are certain situations where maybe two people shouldn't be together.
Correct.
Right? Especially if your life's in danger, if there's some type of abuse going on, you need to go get the help.
Emotional or physical.
Yeah, this emotional or physical. You need to go get the help. And sometimes it's necessary to separate.
Right. It's just that we should not use out all the time, like something, and not saying because infidelity is huge, but if you have, sometimes you have the, infidelity, just different. Even sometimes people have their family so involved in their marriage that people, that and stuff, because people are ending without doing any work. And you're going to have some situations, like you said, abuse and physical, mental, certain things like that, where you absolutely probably need to get away from immediately. But then you have those things, disagreements, people walking away for disagreements, people walking away for even infidelity, people walking. I can see if a person is infidelity and it's just sometimes people aren't even just ready to be married. So you just married somebody that wasn't ready to be married. And I understand that. But I still feel you try to do the work if both people are willing to do the work. It has to be. If you don't love yourself, that other person is not completing you. You're not, they don't, you're supposed to complete yourself and then come together.
Yes,
exactly. And then that's supposed to make it just as powerful. So, that's the kind of thing you just want to encourage married couples, even couples, really. I think any of them.
And by the way, again, it's not always suffering. Like I said, most of the time it's extremely happy. There are days where I'm like, I don't know that I deserve to be this happy. Like, wait a minute. But it's almost like I can hear God chuckling when I say that, because he's like, I told you, if you trusted me, you would be happier than you could ever possibly believe you could be, especially after something like that, after being in that well. That you could ever get to this point where you feel like you're flying, is just, there are days I still am like, are you sure? Like, really? I deserve this much happiness? Okay, God, I'm gonna take it.
And it's funny that you say that, because when you think about just not being alone, and you tell this part in the book where you were telling your grandma about something. And her response was, "Don't you mess this up."
Oh, yeah, my aunt. Yeah. My aunt, it was so funny. So she had a couple of interactions with him. And this is my aunt, like my ace boon coon. Like, she thinks I can do absolutely no wrong. And I was telling him, I said, something's wrong with him, Aunt Debbie, because he's nice. He writes me poetry. He's clean. He has a job. He cooks, he's got money in a bank account, and he's not married. Now, this tells you how young and immature I was, because he's only 26. But I was like, why would you not be married? She was like, don't you mess this up. And I was like, wait a minute. You don't even know this ninja. But she saw it. She saw it. But they knew he was a good guy. I was ready to give him up though, because I told my aunt, I said, he's either gay or a serial killer, because ain't no way he can be, at least in my eyes, fine and clean and got money and a job, and ain't no woman just snatch that up. But That's because he was
So
meant for
God
me.
was holding them off for you, girl.
That's right. That's because he was meant for me. Now I had to fight. I told y'all in book I had to fight one of them. Not really fight. I was ready to fight. But it was one of those circumstances where he was like, oh no, it's no big deal. And I was like, oh no, your ex-girlfriend is sniffing. She got to go.
But see, but the other thing you don't tell about, I always wonder, like, so what kind of dudes were you messing with? Because here's the thing: when she would come over to my house, I know how to cook, so I got your meats, I got your vegetables, I got your starch.
Always.
And she'd be like, "Oh my God, you got starch and meat!" And she was so amazed. I was like, "This is a meal. Don't you eat right? Like, who are you messing around with these dudes, busters, is feeding you or not?" So
I don't think I was messing with anybody who fed me before. Now they mamas may have fed me, but not them.
Right.
So yeah, he was on a different level, but he is such a genuine person. And I have, oh, thank you, baby. But I've learned a lot from him. I think I have learned to how to be a little bit more patient. I'm still not all the way there. But he definitely helps me with it's okay. It's going to happen. It doesn't have to happen overnight because I'm the type A planner. Let's get it done, baby. Once we say we're doing something, we need to get it done quickly. He's like, it will get done. You just don't have to do it all today, baby. I'm like, okay.
In us wrapping up, I want if you guys could, so Stacia, if you could say anything to married couples, and then Ed, if you could say anything to married couples, what would it be?
It would be think of the other person first. If you both every day wake up and think about the other person first. So what can I do for him today? And he wakes up every morning and the first thought on his mind is, what can I do for her today? Y'all gonna be all right. I think most of us wake up every day and say, what can they do for me? And then that's where we enter into problems, So I think if you can wake up every morning and say the only competition in our marriage, and I have to admit, I think I'm stealing part of this from our pastor, but the only competition in our marriage is who can outserve the other one, you'll be all right.
For me, I think it's something we talked earlier on. It's just not being afraid to get help if you need it. And something our pastor also talked about is like sometimes it's okay to go see a therapist or a counselor for your marriage, even when you're doing well.
Yes.
Sometimes
go when you're well.
Doing it when you're well actually helps strengthen you. So I would recommend you at some point, you don't have to do it all the time, but it's probably good regularly to have someone help you guys find out where some gaps are that you guys can strengthen and work on and do that. And like Stacia said, don't do it when it's worse, because that's the hardest part. Do it when you're doing well. Do it when you guys are happy. Do it so that you can continue that path. And then also just remember, you have a village of people who sometimes are behind you. You don't even know it. Friends, family members. So don't be afraid to open up, especially for men. This is really for the men, just not to be afraid to share and talk and find you a group of men who can support you, believe in you, and lift you up. And those are the things I think that really can help that marriage, as that man is getting fed and believed in and supported, that he can do the same thing to his wife.
Yeah, and I have to add one thing, because I just thought about this, because I think what we're both talking about, it's important to mention. You also have to have a vision for your marriage. Why are you married? What's the point of you two being together? So like you were saying earlier, a legacy. What are you trying to do? What is the vision for your marriage? And that's where you wake up every day trying to figure out how you can serve each other. That's where you go to counseling, even when things are good, because you're trying to figure out, just like at work, once you have a vision for what you're trying to do, you have to, okay, so what are the right action steps to make sure that vision comes to pass? And so I think that's really important too. Why are you married? Why are you married to each other? And what is your marriage supposed to mean? And once you do that, then it becomes a little bit easier to make these two things that we're talking about habits.
That's awesome. Final question. Where can people get the book? Well, two-part. Where can people get the book, and how can people follow you all on social media and continue to get your message?
Awesome. So you can buy the book on Amazon. if you just search for We Redo. So like we say, I do when we get married, we redo. And so it's on Amazon, both Kindle version and paperback. And then you can follow us on social. We actually have a page, We Redo, on Facebook. And then you can follow us individually, obviously, Stacia Gowens on Facebook and on Instagram. And then you are.
I'm Edward Gowens on Facebook and on Instagram.
No, I mean, and definitely, I just want to say that we enjoyed you, and maybe you guys consider really, I'm telling you, I read your book. When I read your book, it was just so much of things that I have been through that it was just like, I told you, I said, oh my God, I couldn't stop. I just really couldn't stop. Yeah. And it was nice for someone to be sharing their stories that we try to stay so private about because we don't want people to judge us. So it felt really good reading that. And I'm hoping in the future to see you guys doing some kind of, even if you're doing like a huge Zoom, a conference for people that are either married or considering getting married, because those people should definitely read your book. And I mean, and hear you as well. And also we'll definitely make sure that their link to their book is posted on our page as well.
Perfect. Yeah. Awesome. It was wonderful talking to you, ladies.
Thank you guys for having me. As the guy.
As the guy.
And you're the only guy that's ever been on the show. So
you're the first, so nobody can take that from you. Well, thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Have a good rest of your weekend.
You too.
Okay.
Right,
bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
We would just like to invite you in on our podcast where we're going to talk about some things. So get your tissues ready. It's going to be deep, but it's going to be real. So we invite you to just sit in with us and share our experiences, share your experiences with us, and we'll share ours with you.